There it is. You can see it. It's pretty well lit. It's looking good. That is a factory sealed copy of God Punishes Killed by Death. Number 3 in the seemingly endless series of Killed by Death records. Responsible for an entire genre of record collecting. And a very easy way to define a certain type of record. And this is one of several that we're going to be talking about in depth, live, on tonight's episode of Tent Talks Tunes. And that copy of that record just went crashing to the ground. But little do you guys know, this is a special behind the scenes tip. I have a pillow on the floor there where I rest my foot when I'm doing Tent Talks Tunes. So in a lot of ways it doesn't matter if I take a record and drop it on the floor because it has a cushioned landing, guaranteed. Gravity always does its job and the pillow always does its job. And just in case you think I'm faking, just in case you think I'm giving you a line of jive, check this out. That's the pillow. That's the pillow. A little bit worse for wear from being on the floor 24 hours a day, but that's what the record lands on. So it's in good shape. Welcome, everybody. It is bloody damn hot here in Connecticut at the Bon Air Chicken Farm, where I come broadcasting to you live every single Wednesday here on Facebook, and where you can see these episodes archived forever on my YouTube channel, which is somewhere right around there. So please feel free to hop on over there and give it a little subscribe, give it a like, love, live your life by it, baby, because we're talking about total tent existence. So I've been on here for 2 minutes exactly, and no one's chimed in. Is anybody out there? Is this thing actually going out live? I never know until I get some feedback from the people. Because every time I try to log on or do the server thing or whatever, I never know exactly how it's going to set itself. Sometimes it sets itself to private and nobody can actually see it. Sometimes it actually does what it's supposed to do and goes public. Ah, there you go. Ask and ye shall receive. James Pogo from the mighty fine band Armed Delight Rifles. Welcome aboard. Eric Peterson. Hello. My BFF. And when I say BFF, I mean F. Forever. Jill. Hi, Jill. Stephen down in Richmond. Hello. Pear from the great country of Scandinavia. That's right. I said it. I'm an ugly American, baby. The great country of Scandinavia. Thanks for tuning in. Who else is here watching live? Hey, Brian Zickafoos, my bandmate in the Bloody Apostles. And there they are. That's a fine looking band, isn't it? Doesn't sound too fine. Sounds kind of coarse, actually, but we mean business. Got some very exciting developments with the Bloody Apostles, which I'll tell you about in a second. Parvis Driftwood, Mazel Tov. Welcome aboard. So yeah, let's check the bulletin board first. As you can see, we've got a few notices up here. Whoa, what's this? Is that a flyer for a show? Is that actually a gig flyer? For the almighty Anti-Scene live at the Tipsy Burro in Charlotte, North Carolina on August 28th. Kat Johnson, do you see what I see? Do you hear what I hear? It doesn't sound like much, but let me tell you, it's a good looking flyer. And indeed, Anti-Scene is going to be hitting the stage, baby. In Anti-Scene's hometown of the Queen City, Charlotte, North Carolina, playing a very rare free gig. This band typically does not play for free, but the Tipsy Burro are kindred spirits and long-time friends and allies of the almighty Anti-Scene. So if you're in Charlotte, North Carolina, Anti-Scene August 28th. If you're not in Charlotte, North Carolina, I recommend that you get there. That also applies for the night before. Another notice here on the bulletin board. The almighty Anti-Scene live at the Ground Zero on August 27th, which is the night before August 28th. You see, I've got all this information coming at you in a pincher's movement, sort of like a Panzer Division maneuver. August 27th, Ground Zero, Spartanburg, South Carolina. South Carolina, my home state. I was born in South Carolina. So I'll be rocking even more extra hard than I usually do. When I play live, I give 119%. South Carolina, 119.5%. That will do. With our good friends Hembre and the Satan Sisters, you know that shite's gonna rock. Don't miss it. Don't miss it. Don't miss it. Live music on a stage played by a live band. Oh, my stars and garters. Woo! Yes, John Adam. I know you'll be there. And Kat says that her grandma is in Charlotte and she loves to get loose. I hope to see Grandma Kat there at the show. We promise that we'll show her a good time. Timothy Welsh, welcome on board. Very exciting developments, man. We also have I don't have a flyer for it yet, but the Bloody Apostles are playing a local gig. Woo, imagine that. We're playing in New Milford, Connecticut on August 6th at a place called Fast Eddie's. And that's going to be with our friends Collins Way and Danbury's Last Hope for Hardcore Punk, White Thrash. So August 6th, Fast Eddie's in New Milford, the Bloody Apostles, White Thrash, and Collins Way. That's yet another show. That's 1, 2, 3 shows you don't want to miss in the merry month of August when it's going to be hot. All right, we checked the bulletin board. Let's check the mailbox. It's been a pretty good week for mail here on Tent Talks Tunes. Just in case anybody was wondering, I do show this off every week. Got a mailing address right there for you, Malcolm Tent. It's got my face to match it, so you have a little bit of reinforcement. Malcolm Tent, P.O. Box 3626, Newtown, Connecticut, 06470. My life is full of joy. I cannot say that the only joy I have is going to the mailbox and seeing what's in there. It's one of the many joys that I have. And I like to share that with all of you guys, because who doesn't like mail? Who doesn't like mail? I love receiving it. I love sending it. So we got a couple of really good packages here, including a big thick one from Mobile, Alabama. Who could that be? Who could be sending me this big old box from Mobile, Alabama? Well, gee whiz, according to the return address, it's Dennis Highland. Dennis Highland from the great Jackhammer Records label. A Japanese label that releases all kinds of really wild, metallic, punk, hardcore, punk, metal, some very extreme stuff. And they also released the 10-inch EP between Anti-Scene. There we go. I'm doing this in my monitor. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. But there we are. Anti-Scene and Before I Hang came out on Jackhammer Records. A fine label. And Dennis sent me a big fat package. We're going to open this thing up. And it looks like a bunch of real random chaos. What did he send me? I see Dennis, I think, knows how much I love the weird and the esoteric. So this is totally weird and esoteric. This is the Golden Age of Television. I thought it said charade without my glasses, but it's a chronicle of the first 25 years on a 12-inch LP and packaged very tastefully in the cover itself, a 32-page book. Not bad, not bad. It's kind of like, who doesn't love getting mail? Who doesn't like to watch TV? I've watched plenty of TV in my day. And what I'm doing right now is kind of like TV, you know? All you young kids out there, you got to tell me if TV is even a thing anymore. I don't know. But somebody once said that what I was doing was in the spirit of cable TV, and I take that as a very high compliment. We got advanced selections from the movie Metropolis. Very strange coupling of people on this one. Bonnie Tyler and John Anderson. And somebody apparently really liked the John Anderson track, or maybe that was the one that was singled out for complete annihilation. I don't know. But that's cool and that's weird. Here's a couple of records. I could do an entire show on this kind of stuff. And my friend Michael Pilmer, who's got his own YouTube channel, which I recommend very highly. It's very entertaining. Michael Pilmer does live unboxings of stuff on his show, which is very cool. He also has his real thing for bizarre, fundamentalist Christian albums. And if you didn't think that fundamentalist Christianity in itself was bizarre just as is, a lot of the albums they put out are really bizarre. Here's Larry Adams, The Sun's Coming Up. According to the liner notes, he had polio as a child and learned how to play harmonica for the Lord. And there he is in all his glory. More power to him. We also have Merrill Womack, who's happy again in spite of the fact that he was in a plane crash and was apparently burned up to a cinder, over 80% of his body, but lived to tell the tale and devote what was left of himself to the Lord. Now, mind you, I'm not mocking these people. I'm not mocking Merrill Womack in the slightest bit. I'm not mocking Larry Adams at all. If these guys can recover from what they recovered from and make music, they're made of very stern stuff. But it's this thing about the born-again Christians who just love albums by people who have, I don't know, they've sort of been through the ringer a little bit. They just love them. They love people with polio and people who've been burned alive and people who've been in aircraft disasters and people who are born without arms and legs, and they just love this stuff. You'll find more per capita album covers and albums by people have been hit by a sandbag in born-again Christianity than you will anywhere else in any other genre at all. And the music, well, the music kind of speaks for itself. So yeah, and of course Dennis also, he's paid a lot of attention to Tent Talks Tunes, and he's heard the story about how this band right here changed my life for the better. Grand Funk, baby. Their second album, self-titled. This is what it's all about. This is the primitive, knuckle-dragging, primordial, over-amped, over-distorted sludge feast that I first heard at the age of 7, courtesy of their live album, that made me who I am today. So this is great. I mean, obviously, you know, I've already got several copies of it in the personal collection, but it's always a pleasure to open up a package and see Grand Funk. Look at the original capital green Target label. That is authentic. 1970, maybe even 1969, sludge rock. You can have all the Blue Cheer you want. Blue Cheer were never Grand Funk. Enough said. Thank you, Dennis. I'm going to have to think of something to send you that'll be reciprocal in a likely fashion, in a like fashion. Some reciprocity is in order. Got to put on my thinking cap. I will. Now here's a guy who I've already hooked up a little bit. I sent a package to this dude, Mr. Greg Crawford from Pensacola, Florida. He's the guy who thoughtfully supplied the handwritten address, Malcolm Tent, P.O. Box 3626, Newtown, Connecticut 06470. Pay attention and send something to that box. There's nothing worse than an empty P.O. box. Greg has also paid a lot of attention to Tent Talks Tunes. He's heard me mark out repeatedly, unrepentantly, yea, perhaps even repetitiously about that band right there. You can see the logo, Public Image Limited. And he sent me a document of an absolutely shredding, epical live performance by PIL. It's on an album called Identity Factory, and it's PIL live in Manchester, England, June 18th, 1979. And it marks the world debut of some of the songs off the metal box, aka second edition, which I talked about at length last week. This album blazes. It burns. This is red hot, man. PIL Live could be a very hit or very miss proposition, but this night they nailed it. And not only that, somebody actually was plugged into the board and recorded it. And this is the only soundboard recording of PIL I've ever come across. Or I should say from the classic, yea, the only real lineup of PIL: Johnny Lydon, Keith Levine, Jaw Wobble, and fill in the blank on drums. In this case, Richard Dudansky from the 101ers on drums. Did a pretty good job, man. So this record is red hot. Thank you, Greg. Greg, I've already sent you something in the mail, so keep your eye on your own mailbox. There's going to be something good in there. Shane Dishman. Shane says, black metal, please. I don't have any Venom records here. I'm sorry. I am in a band, of course, with Paul Ledney of Profanatica. I'm going to go right ahead and say it. The dude who originated black metal in the U.S., Profanatica. I hope that's close enough for you. I don't know. All right, so thank you, everybody, for sending me that stuff. I really appreciate it. What else have I got here? One last bit of information on the bulletin board. From the back, it's not very interesting. You can probably maybe see that it's a piece of paper with some texture on it. If you flip it over, it's a bunch of cassette labels. Interesting. Cassette labels. Hope you can see them clearly. Cassette labels, not only that, they're all hand-signed. One signature says Ward. One signature says Malcolm Tent. Ward and Malcolm Tent. Hand-signed cassette labels. And I've got 100 of these. That's all I'm going to say right now. I'm well aware that the smallest doubt is crueler than the harshest truth. But we're just going to leave that there on my desk until the time is right. Just remember, you heard it here first on 10 Talks Tunes. A toast. Well, all right then, gang. Enough fall to rawl. Let's get right down to the brass gritty. Let's get down to nitty tacks. Let's talk about records I got. You know, I've been doing this whole Tent Talks Tunes. I've been doing this whole Tent Talk Tunes, Tent Talks Tunes thing for over a year. Hello, Jenny DeSoto, my birthday buddy. Her birthday is September 23rd, as is mine. Jenny, hi. And I was kind of bumming around, you know, thinking, well, what am I going to talk about this week? I was sort of at a loose end, kind of drawing a blank, and I realized, you know, I've got an entire record store at my disposal. I've been talking about the records from my personal collection now for over a year. I've got a record store, baby. Trash American style. Trash American style. And this vintage t-shirt from the late 80s that I'm sporting, that my mom gave me. I got a whole record store at my disposal. Now, Jenny DeSoto knows. She knows because she was there. Oh, her father, September 23rd as well. Awesome. Jenny knows because she grew up at Trash American style. In case you didn't know, I had my record store for 21 years. It was, I would have to say, the best record store that ever existed. You know, if I didn't believe it, who else is? It was curated to my specifications. Therefore, it was the best. The landlord, this is where everybody goes thumbs down talking about the landlord. The landlord shafted us in the year 2007, 14 years ago. Caramba. But you know, you can take the boy out of the store, but you can't take the store out of the boy. That landlord who thought he'd stopped me from running the world's coolest record store merely changed my business plan. Okay, I don't have a storefront anymore. I still got the records. I still have the desire. I still have the love and the drive and the motivation. I'm just going to take my act on the road. So that's what I've been doing for the past 14 years. Selling at record shows, swap meets, punk gigs. I love setting up at punk and hardcore shows. Any kind of event where people are turned on and really want good music and want to do a little bit of shopping. For example, I'm going to be in New London, Connecticut this Sunday, selling out in front of Telegraph Records on Golden Street in New London, way out east on the Connecticut shoreline. Telegraph is hosting this event. They've graciously invited me to sell, so I'm going to set up. I'm going to sell all day long, outdoors, in front of a record store, in the street. How cool is that? So I'll be doing stuff like that, you know? So that's how I've been doing it for the last 14 years, besides running the record label and everything else. So I'm like, well, goddamn, why don't I just go down into the inventory and pull some stuff and talk about it? There's a lot of cool stuff there, man. So intuitively, the first thing I thought about talking about was this. Very interesting record by the Beatles called Twist and Shout. And look at that, I've thoughtfully put a price on it for you. 25 bucks, baby, in mint condition. Twist and Shout by the Beatles. Now, I'm going to guess that many of you out there have never seen this record. I know that I had never seen one until I'd been collecting records for quite a year, you know, quite a bunch of years. Never saw this, never knew anything about it. And, you know, if you're like me, you love the thrill of discovery and you love spotting the differences and variants in different albums. What the hell is this? Well, this is a Canadian only version of the Beatles' first UK album, Please Please Me. And this is a UK pressing from the 80s. It's an interesting hybrid because it's got, I don't know if you can see, it's got the old style laminated cover where the lamination from the front extends just a little tiny bit on the back. So the back cover has kind of a matte finish and the front cover has a glossy finish. And later pressings have more of a matte finish on both sides. So this is a 1980s pressing, which you can tell by the black Parlophone label with the boxed logo and the EMI on top. That's 80s right there. Nice high quality British pressing. Now the story gets very convoluted with this record. This record came out in 1963 in England in this form. 14 songs, all classics with, you know, that back cover and that front cover. Now the story is hilarious because EMI is the parent company of Capitol Records. Capitol Records being the American and Canadian company that released Beatles records. When this album came out, and when the first few Beatles 45s came out, EMI shopped them to the subsidiary label in the US and said, hey, we got this band, the Beatles, they're red hot. You, as a subsidiary label, need to release these here in the US and in Canada. In Canada, EMI did release the first few Beatles 45s, which were met with some success. Not like blockbusting, million-selling gold platinum success, but they did okay. In the US, Capitol flat out refused to release any records by the Beatles. Flat out refused. They said, no, we are not going to release any records by this freakish, long-haired bunch of, well, they're probably homosexuals. Look at them. Ew. We're not going to release that. No way. Capitol refused, which is why a lot of the early American records by the Beatles that you see are on weird labels like Swan and MGM and VJ. The only way that the Beatles and or EMI could get the first Beatles album and the first few Beatles singles released in the USA, was by signing licensing deals with labels like VJ Records. See right there, VJ. VJ was based in Chicago, and they were primarily known for their awesome R&B records. They were also the home of Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons, and Freddie Cannon. Actually, Freddie Cannon was on Swan. Who else was on VJ? Four Seasons, Jimmy Reed was on VJ. The Beatles, obviously. I got a fantastic Soul 45 called I Want Justice by Jimmy Hughes. That was on VJ. So VJ was a Chicago primarily R&B label, and they were the only label that wanted to license Beatles records for release in the U.S. In keeping with, and see, I told you the story was kind of convoluted. I hope you guys will stick with me a little bit. In keeping with the traditions of American record releasing at the time, they changed the cover from that to that. And instead of releasing it with those 14 songs, they released it with 12 songs and withheld a couple for singles. Now, what's really funny is that prior to the release of this album in the U.S., which Capitol Records refused to release, the vice president of VJ Records took all the money that was going to be used to press these, took it to Las Vegas, and gambled it away. Lost all the money. This was, if I recall correctly, sometime around October, November 1963. Oh, what a night. So there was no money to release this record. Meanwhile, with lots and lots of arm twisting and tugging of the forelocks and browbeating, EMI finally convinced Capitol in the U.S. to release some Beatles records. And that's when Meet the Beatles came out, and the rest is hysteria. And after Meet the Beatles came out, somehow VJ found the Capitol to start pressing Introducing the Beatles, which would have been the debut American version. The first Beatles album ever to come out in the U.S. would have been the U.S. version of that on VJ. Now, Bill Kyler is tuned in, and he says he's got the VJ boot of this record. This record went out of print, I do believe, on December 31st, 1964. It's when the license ran out. But then in the early 70s, some enterprising soul realized, hey man, this record's been out of print for 11 years or whatever, and you can't get it anymore. Who's going to stop me from just pressing my own version of it? Which they did. And so for years, all the cutout bins and all the dime stores and all the discount stores and all the drug stores and pharmacies were stocked to the gills with fake versions of Introducing the Beatles. And the fakes all had varying degrees of shabbiness with the reproduction of the front cover art. The dead giveaway on the fakes is that original VJ labels all have a full rainbow label. The fakes have either a very poorly rendered rainbow with only a couple of real low resolution colors that look terrible, or they're just simply black and silver. And it makes it really complex because a lot of the authentic VJ labels were also only black and silver. So you really got to know what you're looking for. But that's authentic. That's the real deal. And this is from the inventory of Trash American Style. And this record is great because if you look at it in the light, it looks pretty decent. I'd rate it a strong VG+. It sounds awesome. It just sounds so good. VJ, remember, was a respected, established label. Their mastering was pretty top shelf. Sounds real good. Bill Kyler, you're bummed because the one you got was a boot. This one's real. As I might have mentioned at the beginning of the show, unlike most episodes of Tent Talks Tunes, this is all for sale, baby. You can buy any of these, man. Talk to me. Send me a message. Let's do some trade. Bill Kyler's got a pretty cool record shop up in Littleton, New Hampshire called Bad Art. Let's trade. Let's trade some bad art for some trash, just like the old days, man. This could be yours. The price is definitely right. This original UK 80s pressing, well, not original, but, UK 80s pressing can be yours. My price is right. If you want the Canadian version, which also has 14 songs, basically the entire album minus a couple, but with From Me to You and She Loves You, on the very intriguing and intrinsically pleasing purple Capitol label, exclusive Canadian release. It's for sale. And I even put a price on it just to help you out, $25. Talk to me. VJ during the time that they had the rights to that Beatles album, they cranked out as many versions as they possibly could. They milked that cow until the udders fell off. One version of that album that I think is extremely cheesy but very fun is the Songs, Stories, and Pictures of the Fabulous Beatles. Completely different cover. It's got this really neat proto gatefold, the type of which you just did not see in 1964. Different back cover. Same old album though, and here's that black VJ label I was telling you about. They didn't even bother to change the name on it. It's still Introducing the Beatles. They didn't even bother to change the name on the label. They just took the records they had on hand and stuck them in new covers and kept selling and selling and selling and selling. That's an authentic VJ label. Inside of a very nice gatefold sleeve. This was also counterfeited left, right, and center around the same time as I was Introducing the Beatles, but they don't have the gatefold. They're one piece, and the art is very washed out on the front. So this is real. This is like stone cold OG gatefold black label and in very nice condition. Is it for sale? Damn straight. You'd better bet your bippy. People ask me, Malcolm Tent, how do you do it? How do you make a living? Well, I'm showing you right now. We can pretend that we're in New London, Connecticut, and that it's this coming Sunday, and that we're under a marquee, and it's beautiful and bright and sunny outside, and I am talking to you about records. And even in person, man, there's no obligation to buy. Let's just talk about music. I like it when you do. Of course I love it when you buy records. That's how I pay for Harry the Cat's cat food. But I'm happy to, I'm happy to talk about them too, man. It's fun. It's good fun. Now let's see. James Pogo wants to know if I have any Beatles Barkers records for sale, which is, of course, Beatles songs sung by barking dogs. I wish. I wish I did. I do have some fake Beatles tribute albums, aka quick smash and grab exploitation records from 1964, but that's an entirely different topic for Tent Talks Tunes. Those records are so wonderfully lousy that I go out of my way to collect them, and I've comped them on my label TPOS, by the way, which you can find, of course, on Discogs and eBay. Just saying. All right, let's drink a little bit, shall we? Danbury tap water. See, James Pogo, it figures you would be into the Beatles Barkers. It figures. I could tell that by listening to those Arm Delight Rifles records. That you're into the Beatles Barkers. I knew it. I knew it. Well, as we know, where there's the Beatles, there's the Stones. And I've talked about my love for the Rolling Stones. In fact, it was also, again, last week I talked about some of the Rolling Stones' innovative, cutting-edge album packaging. True works of art. And the first one they ever did that had a really cool artistic album cover, this one confused the hell out of me when I was a kid. The Rolling Stones Through the Past Darkly octagonal sleeve, or octagonal if you speak the president's English. The octagonal sleeve of Through the Past Darkly. Looks like a stop sign, doesn't it? Stop! Go. Stop! Go. With the front picture of them pressed up against the glass, and the back picture of them smashing the glass, breaking the fourth wall. And not only that, it's a gatefold. A gatefold octagonal sleeve. That's pretty damn cool. It was released after the death of Brian Jones. And in the UK, just to make things even more interesting, this was the back cover. And the track listing was ever so slightly different. But this is the US version. And as far as I know, all the reissues since have been regular square covers. But to think that a stodgy, boring, dull record label like London Records would actually acquiesce to the Stones' wishes for some interesting packaging. And they did it. They made it an octagon. Pretty neat. This is for sale. $8.50. People also ask me, Tent, how come you can sell your records so cheap? I don't know. As I'm fond of telling people, I'm not running a museum. I'm here to sell. It does me no good to go down into my storage space and say, look at that great record. It's worth $10, but I have it priced at $20. Boy, that looks great up there. Looked great there yesterday. It's going to look great there next week because no one's going to buy it. Nope, I'm here to sell, baby. Sell, sell, sell. That's why an octagonal cover, original U.S. pressing, is only $8.50. Talk to me. Hit me up. Let me know. Rolling Stones, baby. How about this? Exile on Main Street. This is a fine, fine example of bonus packaging. Double album. It's got the original, what they called Unipack gatefold sleeve, which is very flimsy on the front. It's got both records in the middle. Not only is it a deluxe gatefold sleeve, not only does it have 1, 2 double-sided heavy inserts, it also comes with this really neat, still just barely held together. I gotta be careful with this. Never mind. I was gonna say fully intact, but let's just say it's got all 6 postcards. The Rolling Stones included a lovely postcard set. And there might even be more postcards than just 6. I know that in my inventory and in my storage space, I've got loads and loads of odds and ends and spare parts. So if there are more postcards to it, I can stick them in there and make a complete set, I'm pretty sure. But that's cool deluxe packaging, man. Beautiful minimalist label design. Rolling Stones records. Great stuff. This is the early pressing before it had the Warner's Communication logo on the bottom. Very, very nice. Vinyl? Man, that vinyl is fresh. That vinyl looks like it was taken very, very good care of. Very good care of. And it has been taken very good care of when it's been in my custodianship. Yeah, postcard notwithstanding. Sorry, guys. Those things are really flimsy and fresh. Oh, wait, here we go. Here's some more postcards. Yeah, look at that. I got at least 8 postcards in this copy of Exile on Main Street. And that vinyl is fresh. Oh my god, it's got all the original Matrix inscriptions on it. Yeah, this is really good. This is in great condition. And as far as I know, it's complete. Oh yeah, look at that. Oh my god, you see, this is the beauty of it. This is the joy of discovery. I'm finding all the postcards now. Gang, we're up to 12 now. We're up to 12 postcards. 12! We started with 6. I opened this thing up on live Facebook streaming, and now I'm up to 12. And the fact that I accidentally split some of them is kind of irrelevant because they were already split. All right, so you got 4 on this strip. You got 4 on this strip. You got 2 here, and you got 2 here. Life is good. And it's for sale. I don't know how much you want to get for it. Maybe 20 bucks, maybe 25, 20 or 25. I don't know. 20 or 25. Depends on my mood. Depends on who hits me up. It's right there, baby. Ain't going nowhere until you take action. The Stones continued to make really cool packaging. Up to and including a time when, in my opinion, their music had ceased to be relevant in any way, shape, or form. And mind you, I love the Stones. Love the Stones. Love them, love them, love them, love them. Love the Stones. But by the time they got around to their album Dirty Work, which was kind of like your definitive Keith versus Mick album, I think they'd kind of lost the spark. You know, Charlie had been playing the same drum beat for about 11 years at that point. Um, you know, they were just basically retreading Some Girls over and over and over again. But you got to admit, the cover is really cool. Now you might be thinking, hey, wait a minute, the cover doesn't look like that. The cover I know of Dirty Work is really bright and multicolored, and it's lots of just really gaudy blues and purples and yellows. How come this one's all muted shades of purple and red? What's up with that? Well, that's because the original first pressing of this that came out on LP, I hope the camera can pick this up, had a red shrink wrap. The shrink wrap was not transparent, as it usually is. On this album, the shrink wrap was red. And if you go under the red shrink wrap, the colors reveal themselves. Please note, I'm taking great care not to destroy the shrink wrap on this one. But yes, the bright colors are under the shrink wrap. So how cool is that? And this is Stone Cold. It's original. Some very smart person left the shrink on it. Yeah, look at that. There's some colors for you. By this time, Rolling Stones records had switched over to distribution by Columbia, so they were doing really fancy, fancy labels. You know, it's very 80s. If you like the 80s, if you were there, you got it. It's a souvenir. $10. That's all I want for it. $10. $10 for this, 25 for the Exile, and 8 for the Through the Past Darkly. That is about $43, which is about, I think, what you would pay for a brand new reissue of fill in the blank. I don't even want to know what the new reissues of these things go for. I don't even want to know. I just know that for the first time in history, the originals, at least when you buy them from me, are going for less than the represses. Put that in your corn cob pipe and smoke it. Or put that in your water jug and drink it. Yes, James points out that the first pressing of the Chameleons, aka Chameleons UK, their epical album, I think it was Script of the Bridge, am I not right? Script of the Bridge, had a yellow shrink wrap. So the cover looked like a sickly urine yellow until you peeled it off and it was white. And I don't find covers with the yellow shrink on it too often. And man, that's a great album. There's no qualification on that one. That is just a really, really good album. Love the Chameleons. One of those bands who just should have conquered the world, but they were too busy fighting amongst themselves to conquer the world. Let that be a lesson to all of you in bands. Conquer the world, not yourselves. You can quote me on that. All right, that's rock and roll, man. Let's talk about some punk rock and some hardcore, baby. One of the other great defining genres of my life. And this is what I used as a teaser at the beginning, Killed by Death. Now, Killed by Death, this was a great series of bootleg compilations of phenomenally, as you can see on the description, rare punk rock and hardcore records from a certain time period. And these comps like really basically invented an entire field of collecting. You know, something that was very underground and for a certain cognoscenti, if you will, suddenly became kind of mainstream because of the Killed by Death records. The first volume of it was the same as what the third is, a collection of extremely rare, impossible to find punk and hardcore records. And I believe the cutoff date was 1983. Why? I don't know. But they focused in on that like basic period from 76-ish to 83-ish. And brought to light for the first time a lot of records that no one had ever heard of, no one had ever heard, and were all just basically phenomenally rare. And the first time I saw Killed by Death, it was kind of like culture shock. I was like, really? People actually pay a lot of money for these punk and hardcore records? Nah, they don't. Certainly they don't. Who would pay a lot of money for a punk rock record? It's not supposed to be expensive. It's not supposed to be rare. It's supposed to be for the people. It's supposed to be punk rock, man. Paying a lot of money for a punk rock record isn't punk rock. What gives? What gives? But sure enough, it is a whole thing, man. I mean, a rare record's a rare record. Doesn't matter what kind of music it is. If it's rare and somebody wants to collect it and they gotta have it, they're gonna pay the money for it. And Killed by Death really quantified it. They quantified it and they qualified it. Not only that, they're great comps. I mean, the stuff on these albums is just really high quality. I mean, this one right here, who's got on it? You know, who's on it? The Lewd, the Plugs, the Eat, the Queers, the Violators. Just all top shelf stuff. And reading the liner notes, which, you know, maybe if you've got the technology and my camera cooperates, you could get a frame grab of this. This is from the pre-internet age, when people really didn't know anything about these records, because, you know, like the Queers record, for example, they only made 200 of them, and it probably didn't have an address or a city of origin or anything like that. A lot of these records had no information on them whatsoever. So these liner notes kind of reflect the mystery of that. You know, they talk about the Queers, for example. We all know about the Queers, right? The Queers are totally a known quantity. But it says here on the liner notes, the Queers, a real mystery band. This 6-song EP came out in '84 and was pressed in only 200 copies, which is a real shame since it is one of the best punk 45s of this decade. Rumor has it that they did one more EP, but reliable sources tell us that this is their only release. And I read that with a $1 pair of glasses. So that just shows you how little information there was about this stuff, you know? Oh, look at that. John Coletti, a.k.a. The Bomb. John, the Bomber, Mr. Sex Bomb himself from Seizure, and who plays guitar now with the great Supercharger 66, has just posted a link to an actual website for killedbydeath.com. Thank you, Mr. Bomb. I had no idea that existed. I'm going to be checking that out. It wasn't a genre until these albums started coming out. Now, if you go onto eBay and you type in KBD, you're going to come up with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of punk rock records, some of which actually do fit the criteria, many of which don't. But that's what happens when you invent a genre. It sort of begins to define itself after a while. But this is a copy of number 3. It's got the Eat on the front. It's a spoof on their absolutely immortal South Florida EP, God Punishes the Eat. I know that since then, probably a lot of the stuff has been reissued. I know the God Punishes the Eat has been reissued by Alternative Tentacles. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that the Eat probably made as much money off of this bootleg as they did off of the legitimate reissue. Just saying, that's just speculation on my behalf. If I'm wrong, please correct me. But I'm happy to sell you a copy of this sealed copy of God Punishes Killed by Death for 15 bucks. And I wrote the price on the shrink, so you can just take that off if you want. 15 bucks. Boy, am I cheap. I'm incredibly cheap. There is also, I believe this to be a fake Killed by Death, volume 007. Not sure who put this one out. Maybe it'll be listed on the website. We can see if it really is a legit bootleg or not. But this is volume 7. It's got all kinds of stuff. This might even be all brand new groups. This might be a complete and utter fake. But whatever, it's Killed by Death, volume 007. Shrink is open, but it's in great shape, also 15 bucks. And the Killed by Death people inspired many others to do their own collections of rare hardcore and punk records, including the Bloodstains series. You've got Bloodstains across the Midwest, Bloodstains across Belgium, Bloodstains across Cucamonga, Bloodstains across Siberia. All of them based on the Killed by Death model of compiling rare-ass punk and hardcore records from a certain time period and giving as much information as is available extant on the cover. This one is also sealed. This one is also 15 bucks. You can get all three of them from me for 45 bucks, which is less than the cost of a cup of coffee at your local artisanal coffee shop. Probably. I don't know. I don't drink coffee. I'm just told the stuff is expensive. That's all I know. And those records will last you a lot longer than even, let's say, 5 cups of coffee will. 6 cups of coffee. 6 cups of coffee will not last you as long as those records. That's $45 well spent. And what will I spend the $45 on? Cat food. Duh. Please. $45, I can get enough cat food to keep Harry alive for weeks. 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 Luke Walker's got blood stains over the UK. Darn good stuff. All right, gang, I got 2 more to talk to you about. I want to thank everybody for sticking with me for this long, or tuning in and ducking out, as you will. You know, as we know, all my episodes are on my YouTube channel, so you can relive this anytime you want. I got 2 more records to talk about, and they're all part of one story. For me, my personal golden year, my golden era of punk and hardcore was year 0. For me, was 1984. Let's see. Oh, there's some more posting about Killed by Death. We're going to check that out after I'm done, man. And, all right, cool. Lots of information going on. That's what the comment section is all about. It's awesome. I love this. A good discourse we got going on here. Good conversation. Thank you, John the Bomb, for posting about Killed by Death. That looks like really something. Anyway, for me, punk rock ground zero was 1984. Like, I'd known about punk rock since 1977 by seeing it on TV, reading about it in magazines, listening to it on records, reading about it in books, whatever. But 1984 was the year that I first really became a participant in punk rock. That's when I first not only understood but put into practice the fact that you can do it yourself, which to me is the absolute essence of punk rock. You can do it. I can do it. A lot of us on here have done it and are doing it. So 1984 was the year that I really, really grasped the concept. Can you guys hear Harry in the background? Harry, you want to make an appearance on camera? You want to show everybody the lovely poison ivy you gave me? By the way, I showed everybody my poison ivy last week. It's a lot worse now, hence the long sleeves. Nobody wants to look at that. Guarantee you. That's from Harry. Hi, Harry. I still love you. Anyway, the year 1984 was when I realized I could do it. And almost everything that made me what I am today as a musician and as an artist happened in 1984. And it was perfectly bookended. On New Year's Day, 1984, my band, Broken Talent, set up our extremely shabby, ramshackle, barely functioning guitars and amps in our drummer's living room, and we took a reel of 25-year-old cheap reel-to-reel tape in a wobbly old reel-to-reel tape recorder and a couple of Radio Shack mics and recorded our first record. New Year's Day, 1984. We did it. In March of 1984, we released that record on the label TPOS. My label. Why did we do it? Because we could. Because we didn't know anybody else who would. And we figured it's just easier to do it ourselves. Recorded the record on New Year's Day. Released it in March. We went on our very first tour in July of 84. The Confederate Tour 84. where we played a grand total of, what was it, 3 shows in 9 days. But we did it. We left home. We traveled to North Carolina and back, played our shows, survived it, made friends that we have to this very day. Because of that, I met the guys in Anti-Scene, which led to all these years later, me being the bass player for Anti-Scene and playing these shows in August. That all happened because of events in 1984. From recording a record to releasing a record to playing whatever local gigs we could scare up to touring. We also started booking our own shows in 1984 because it was hard to find a venue that would put up with our ungodly racket. We were, I think I said something earlier about being sometimes hit or sometimes miss. Broken Talent, believe me, was sometimes hit and quite often miss. So we needed to find gigs. So we just booked our own. We found whatever place we could find to play a show and would take it over for a night and play. And that is something that has served me to this very day. The DIY venue, the DIY gig. If you can't find a venue, do it yourself. And also throughout 1984, kind of like when we were on tour, we met people, we networked, we met fellow bands. We got to be friends with bands in Florida, like the Gay Cowboys in Bondage and Morbid Opera and Public Distraction and the Suburban Liberation Army, and even some of the older bands that really influenced and inspired me, like Charlie Pickett and the Eggs and the Chant and the Drills and the Gay Cowboys in Bondage. I mean, all names that mean a lot to me. This all happened in 1984. I was learning how to be in a band and how to promote a show and how to tour and how to network and how to appreciate other bands and how to release music. All happened in 84, all in the space of 1 year. The foundation that I'm built on was being laid. And New Year's Eve, December 31st, 1984, was the last show of the year. It was at a place called Flynn's Ocean 71 on 71st Street and Collins Avenue in Miami Beach. And the headliners were 2 bands from New Jersey, Adrenaline OD and Bedlam. And it was still kind of, to my worldview, sort of an exotic proposition to have bands from New Jersey playing in Florida. Bands from anywhere playing in Florida was great. I mean, one of the awesome, wonderful things about going on tour was that we got to go to exotic, faraway places like North Carolina and meet bands like Anti-Scene who weren't from my immediate sphere. Like my entire world prior to discovering punk rock was basically South Florida. So to break out of South Florida and see that there were other people elsewhere who kind of had the same idea or had kind of the same aesthetics was really eye-opening and liberating. And to have these bands come from where they were to where we were was just like, it was like having foreign exchange students come from Zimbabwe or something like that. It was really, really cool. So New Year's Eve, we got Adrenaline OD and Bedlam from New Jersey playing at Flynn's, and it's a big deal. They were great bands. By that time, the owners of the club, whose names I do remember but won't mention, had taken over the booking, and they were clueless. They had no idea about how to promote or book a punk rock show. Absolutely clueless. So they would do stuff like book, and I remember one time they booked the Gay Cowboys in Bondage for some event. And they brought out this great big deli spread and a big table full of cheese and crackers or whatever. And it, of course, ended up being a giant food fight. I mean, what would you expect, right? A punk rock show with the Gay Cowboys in Bondage? Huge food fight. And the owners were pissed, and I don't think they ever booked a show again after that. And they pulled the plug on the Gay Cowboys and whatever. No understanding whatsoever. But the night of the Adrenaline OD and Bedlam show, they kind of got it right. They passed out party favors and horns and blowers and streamers, and it was very festive. And Bedlam came out and tore it up. And AOD came out and tore it up. I'd never seen a band play as fast as Adrenaline OD. Man, a band that lives up to its name. These guys were rapid fire, as were Bedlam. Nobody played that fast. It was a great night. It was the best way possible to ring out an epical year in my life. I should mention, too, I learned how to record bands in 1984 using the MT field unit. And I recorded both of these bands off the board at Flynn's, and the recording of the AOD set actually got used for an anthology CD that came out on the Grand Theft Audio label a bunch of years ago. And you'll never be able to miss the recording of that show. You'll know exactly what gig it is because you can hear all the party horns blowing in the background, like incessantly. It's hilarious. So, yeah, I just picked these records from my inventory. Original Stone Cold OG first pressing of Bedlam's album. Look at that price. $15. How do I sell them so cheap? I don't know. And a reissue version of the Wacky Hijinks on the Chunk Saw label. Factory sealed, brand new, hype sticker. $13. For $28, you can pretend what it was like to be me New Year's Eve, 1984 going into 1985, and wrapping up the first, I would dare say, truly great year of my musical life. Right there, on vinyl, at an extremely reasonable price. Larry Mann wants to know, what's my final price? For everything, Larry? For everything? Talk to me, Larry. Hit me up. Larry and I have done some business. Larry is a good dude. Always happy to hear from you, Larry. So let me know. We'll figure it out. That's all I got to say. I have now been yapping nonstop for a minute. 1 minute and 1 hour and 1 minute. So I'm going to stop. Thank you all for tuning in. I appreciate it endlessly, like you wouldn't believe. It's great to be here and great to have a chance to chit-chat with everybody and commiserate and swap back and forth. I'll be checking out your comments later and we'll be dialoguing. Don't forget, as always, my website, malcolmtent.net, my YouTube channel, Malcolm Tent, oddly enough, my Discogs, my eBay, Anti-Scene Live in Charlotte, August 28th, Anti-Scene Live in Spartanburg, August 27th, The Bloody Apostles, live in New Milford, Connecticut, August 6th, with White Thrash and Collins Way. And me, Malcolm Tent, who hopes to be back for all of you guys in about 167 hours. Until we meet again, this is Malcolm Tent saying so long from the Nutmeg State.